Hello, and welcome everyone to our community chat today. I'm really proud to say that this is our 5th community chat, and these community chats have really been a way of highlighting the incredible people behind the community impact work that we lead. We started hosting them a few months ago during the pandemic because we realized that every time that we talk to these colleagues, we learn something new. So we wanted to make sure that everyone had the opportunity to hear directly from them about the impact that they're having on local families as well. And now these community chats on YouTube have a combined over 500 views, so we're really proud of that. And if you missed any of them, I encourage you to check them out. They are on our YouTube channel under the community chat playlist. So I hope you do check them out. Let us know what you think. And if you want to learn more about how to get involved in any of those initiatives. To introduce myself, I'm Ashley Renee Hampson. I'm the Marketing and Engagement Director at United Way of Greater Lorain County. And today we're going to be focused on free tax prep services that we lead through the IRS certified volunteer income tax preparation program, which we often call VITA. So you'll probably hear us use that term a lot, VITA. If you've watched our other community chats, they're often hosted by our president and CEO, Ryan Aroni, who many of you know. Today, however, he is actually going to be in the live chat. I'm trying to point at it. So definitely ask questions and let us know your thoughts. I'm really honored in particular to host this chat because free tax prep, I know, is a really essential service for so many low and moderate income families in Lorain County. And because personally, it's really been influential experience to me as a volunteer. Because if we're being completely real, taxes are super intimidating. And I personally was scared to train to prepare other people's taxes. To be honest, I have always had family do mine. So that really got me to thinking, though, that not everyone is that lucky to have family who know how to do them. And having your taxes prepared professionally can be quite expensive. So families who are living paycheck to paycheck really deserve to get back everything that they've worked so hard to earn. So really proud to be able to provide those services to folks in our community. So these folks that I'm going to be talking about today are the people who make that happen for about 2,000 families each year, bringing back about $2 million in refunds to our community. So we're really, really grateful to each of you for going live on our channel. Can you share with us what organization you represent and what your role within the Free Tax Prep Impact Initiative is? So I am going to start with Kathleen from the Elyria Public Library.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Runzer, and I'm the Deputy Director of the Elyria Public Library System. So I'm kind of the one that will coordinate with everybody to get this going in our buildings, most specifically our West River branch. And I'm very happy to be here today. Thank you.
All right, Jennifer, you're also with the Elyria Public Library.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Harmon. I'm from the Elyria Public Library. As Ashley just said, I am the Marketing and Programming Coordinator. So I'm the one who kind of gets the word out about that when the services start and when they end, which is very important to most people.
Indeed, and it's coming up soon here. Susan with the Lorain Public Library.
Hi, I'm Susan Spivey, and I'm the branch manager of the main library in Lorain, and we serve as a host site and I also help to coordinate and get everything set up.
Yeah, you allow us to hang out in your parking lot. So we can do open air tax drop-offs, which is really fun in 90-degree weather. But you provide us a tent, so we appreciate that. All right, Emily, you are a free tax prep volunteer.
Yes, I'm Emily Rode. I am a former United Way employee, and now I'm just an accountant as my day job, and I volunteer to prepare taxes every year.
Thanks. And finally, last but certainly not least, Matt, who is the Impact and Data Manager at United Way.
Hi, everyone. I'm the Data and Impact Initiatives Manager. It's a long title, so sometimes I even forget it. And big portion of my job is running the free tax prep program, so coordinating all the sites and volunteers. This is my 3rd year coordinating the program and my 5th year with the program doing taxes. So I can say I've learned more about taxes in the last 5 years than I ever thought I'd know.
And he knows a lot. Sometimes we throw the most random, confusing questions at him, and he's like right on top of it. So we're very grateful for you, Matt. So once again, before we get started with the questions, I just want to remind everyone that if you have a question or you want to learn more about something we're talking about, please feel free to comment below or comment in the live chat. You can just kind of type in there, and those questions will get to us, and we'll get those to our panelists here today. So I just want to start out by saying that these community partnerships are really the foundation of being able to provide tax preparation and filing services for so many families. These host sites that we have, Elyria Public Library, Lorain Public Library, Ohio Means Jobs, even Salvation Army and Sandusky, really enable these services to be widely promoted and accessed, and to really increase our capacity to provide the services. So Jennifer, Kathleen, and Susan, jump in as you wish. Can you just talk about how free tax preparation fits within the work of the library system and how the libraries got involved with the Free Tax Prep Impact Initiative?
So Elyria Public Library started probably about 15 years ago. And it was actually a volunteer from VITA who contacted us to see if we would be a host site. So we've been doing it for a while now. The whole thing of taxes fits into the library's mission of providing timely and accurate information in a community space. So it really fits what our mission is and how we provide for our communities.
And our story is similar. Obviously, we have very similar missions being public libraries. We're the natural, logical place to go since we've been providing tax forms for years for community members and printing out, helping them find help where they need it. So it just kind of is a natural fit.
Yeah, I think I've always been really blown away by how our local library systems really think out of the box in terms of how they use, or how you use your buildings and your services to connect people to the resources that they need. So really appreciate that a lot. Emily, you're a really unique volunteer. As you said in your introduction, you didn't only work for United Way, you actually used to run the Free Tax Prep Impact Initiative and ended up, as you said, becoming an accountant. So why did you decide to stay on as a volunteer? And in your experience, do you have the average level of experience of one of our Free Tax Prep volunteers?
So yeah, I guess I am an abnormal volunteer in that I used to run the program. I stayed on to volunteer because I have to do my own taxes. Let's start there. So what's a great way to learn about what's changed in tax world, what you need to know from year to year? You volunteer with VITA because you get the training, you get all the tax law updates, all of that. But also I just think like it's a great way for me to give back to the community and make use of all that expertise that I've gathered. And I'm not a tax accountant by day, like that's not what I do. So it's kind of a fun break from what I do for a living while still being like in my skill set. And so that's why I do it. I like it. It's fun. It's great to get to hang out with the people that I've volunteered with for 7 years now, worked with and volunteered with. It just breaks up your day.
Yeah, Matt and Emily, can you talk a little bit more about that? Just kind of that spirit of kind of collegiality and connection that's between the tax volunteers, because it, of course, it sounds like a very, numbers and form based volunteer position, but if you actually volunteer with these folks, people are like laughing all the time. So could you talk a little bit more about the connections that volunteers create with each other?
I'll jump in there. It's really great to see, from my point of view, coordinating volunteers, getting them to the sites, and then especially Elyria Public Library on Saturdays in a normal year. This year, of course, isn't a normal year, but we have 10 volunteers there who are all goofing around and doing people's taxes in a professional manner, but there's a lot of chit chat and a lot of camaraderie, and it's really great to see everyone really, it's almost a social event as much as it is a, giving back to the community volunteering event. And we end up seeing, not just at that site too, we end up seeing the same volunteers picking the same shifts because they build that camaraderie with each other, and they're like holding each other accountable. Like, hey, you're going to be here next Tuesday, right? 'Cause I'll be here. So it's really great to see.
Awesome. From the library perspective, do you kind of, what do our tax volunteers and clients kind of bring to your sites?
Well, they become part of a family during the time they're here. We see the same people every day, so it's kind of like having fun new staff members.
I think if you're speaking to the volunteers, yeah, they've kind of just joined part of our staff when they're here. We know who they are. Like, we had Charlie for years, and we looked forward to every year Charlie coming back and just being a part of our staff. He kind of kept us in line, and he was like part of our library family. And talking about from the clients coming in, it lets us see a new group of people that we might not necessarily normally see at the library. So we try to have things available, programs that we offer, new materials, so we can kind of expand on our patron base too. So that's very helpful.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because my next question was just going to build on that in terms of, how do you think that the spirit that the volunteers bring, do you think that impacts, the clients wanting to come back and feeling trust within, our free tax prep services?
I do.
Yeah, any positive experience is always good. It's something they associate with the library, whether the volunteer actually works for us or not. It's a good memory that they had of coming to visit us.
Even if it's getting the taxes done, which isn't always the most positive experience for folks, I think.
Well, it's better than the shot clinics we used to have, so that's not a good association either. The taxes are a little better than the shot, so.
Cool, we'll take that. That should be like our marketing tagline: better than shots.
Yeah.
So I do want to, talk a little bit more about the clients. So, and direct this towards Matt. You've took over after Emily kind of became an accountant and volunteer side. So you've been coordinating the program for about 3 years now, I believe. And, in that time, of course, you've interacted with hundreds of families and tax clients. Can you tell us a little bit more about why this initiative, Free Tax Prep, why does that have such an impact?
So to get into that, the program, the VITA program, was initially started years and years ago to help working families that are living in poverty claim the earned income tax credit. And I won't get too much into the technical aspects of that, but essentially it's a credit that helps working families who are still living in poverty. So they found back when it was first introduced, a lot of families who were eligible for it weren't claiming it. So that's how VITA came into existence, as a way for people to get their taxes done for free to claim that credit. And a huge portion of our clients do claim the earned income tax credit, and it's an extremely beneficial credit. If you want to know more about it, I could talk for an hour about it. But we, the clients we see, I mean, the average adjusted gross income for a family that we serve for a household is about $23,000. So that's not just for one person, that's for an entire household. So these are people who really, really need the help and can't afford to go to a paid preparer. And, nothing against paid preparers, but people who are barely making ends meet, just they can't afford to pay money to get their taxes done. We even get a lot of references from paid preparers who say, oh, no, we don't do your taxes here. Go to the free program down the street. So, I mean, the families that we serve, a lot of them really rely on their refund to make ends meet and to pay bills. We survey our clients after we do their taxes, and the most common use of a refund received is paying bills. So we have partnerships with banks. We try to get people to save that money because we know how important an emergency savings can be for these low-income families. But as long as we can help them to catch up on those bills at the very least, that's that's how we know we're doing the work we need to do.
Thanks, Matt. I think some of those numbers are really, eye-opening, when you hear about an adjusted gross income for a household, at 23,000, you can see how a family, might be struggling to get by. And, but so I'm wondering about the families behind that, because a lot of, this program, as we were talking about, is, kind of people helping people, right? And so does anybody have, a story of a tax client that they worked with that really kind of stuck out to them? I see Emily nodding.
Oh yeah, I had to think back through all of them, right? Like what's a really good story to tell? And I remember my very first year, Christine Matusik-Klaus and I were over at Riverview Plaza in downtown Elyria. And it was kind of a slow day, like the mid-season, I feel like people get their taxes done at the beginning and at the end, and then there in the middle you have like 2 weeks of reprieve where like it's calm. And this young woman walked in and she just looked like she was carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders, and she literally just sets a stack of papers down on the table, like on the desk. And Christine and I just gave each other this look like, oh gosh, right? And she starts to tell us her life story, right? Like she hasn't filed taxes for 7 years. She owes all this back due child support. She's pretty sure she's going to owe a ton of money. She just wants to get them done because she like feels this immense guilt that she hasn't filed her taxes. So like Christine and I divide and conquer, right? So like I took 4 years, Christine took 3, and we're doing them. We're finding out every single year she was due a refund. So not only is that like lifting the weight of an interest or penalty or anything on that, but she was able to actually apply that to her back due child support. So like we've wiped out that debt as well. And I swear, like Christine's crying, I'm like tearing up, the woman's sobbing because she's so happy. And she walked out of there, she's like all caught up on her taxes, she's all caught up on her past due debt, and she had this really great experience, and she just kept coming back after that. And like people would come in like weeks later and be like, oh, I was referred by so and so because they had such a great experience. And that was just like my very first year, and I was like, this is why we do what we do.
Yeah, that's really powerful. I think, you can always apply that even to your own life when you get behind on anything, whether it's taxes or even something more, minor than that. It just starts building up because you just start to get anxious about it and you start to feel guilt. So I'm sure that was a great experience for everyone. Does anybody else have any stories that stand out to them?
I can jump in with a story. So my usual go-to story is one that was highlighted in the impact report a month or two ago. So I won't go to that one, but it's a good one. So if you want to read it, look that up. You can find it on our website. But the story that I'll go through now was actually this last year. I won't go too much into it just to kind of save the anonymity of the client, but they had just moved in from another state. They came to us. They hadn't been able to do their taxes for a while because they were not yet legally separated from a spouse that they left in that other state, and found out a lot about it. And unlike every other story, it ended up that we couldn't do anything. We weren't able to do her taxes that day. But what we could do is we made a referral to legal aid. And legal aid is the low-income taxpayer clinic that we work with, who Dennis Dobos there, he's great attorney. If you're watching, hi Dennis. And he was able to help them. And the person came back about 3 weeks later in tears. We still couldn't do their taxes at that point because everything needed to get cleared up with all of this stuff. But they came back in tears and they just were like, thank you. I didn't know where to start with this. I came to you guys because I thought you'd be able to do something, but now I'm able to do more than I thought I was able to do. And I talked to Dennis since then, and things are going well with the case. So, not actually us doing the taxes, but making that important referral to another organization was really great.
I think that's a really powerful story. Well, this is one of our impact initiatives. It is full of partnerships. What the other work that we do at United Way is lead community collaboratives. And, that's part of the beauty of it, right? Is that all our agencies work so closely together that, if it's not something that we can do, we have a really good relationship, likely with someone who can do that. And so that's really powerful to have been able to make that connection. That's a hard story to follow. I don't know if anyone else wants to jump in on that one. All right. So this year, as we all know, we are still in the middle of a pandemic. And this, just as we've been talking about, this is a very people-driven services here. So in past years, of course, we, have completed taxes in real time, face-to-face with clients and the volunteers. However, in response to COVID-19, we've had to really adapt a lot, and that was the reference to the Lorraine Public Library's parking lot that I made earlier, where we did some drop-off tax returns. So we have a great AmeriCorps member with United Way this year, Miranda, and she's been working really hard on doing kind of sharing our safety protocols. So you'll see in the live chat, we're going to link to a video that I totally recommend that you watch in a little bit. But I do want to turn it over to Matt to share a little bit more about how taxes are going to run this year, and understanding that information is constantly changing. But what our plans are for this year to make sure that we're keeping volunteers safe, clients safe, and we're still getting a lot of taxes done.
So yeah, as Ashley said, everything is constantly changing day by day, week by week. So what we're even doing to start the season might be different from how we end it. We're hoping for the better, but we'll take it as it comes day by day. But as of right now, we're doing a mixture of drop-off appointments and in-person real-time appointments for tax preparation. So the drop-offs will have taxpayers coming to one of our sites to fill out the forms, sign the release to leave their tax materials with us, and then we will have volunteers complete those during the week, and the taxpayer will come back a week later to pick up their forms. So that's going to be a big way that we get the returns done, and we find that's a really safe way to do it, because then the taxpayers are there for a limited time and the volunteers are in a remote location doing the tax returns. And then the other way we're doing it is a very modified in-person real-time preparation way, where usually, and hopefully we go back to it next year, we're sitting 3 feet away from someone doing their taxes, talking to them, and you really get that feel for the client and hear some good stories. But this year it'll be more having our preparers there and able to speak with the client, but the client will be in a separate waiting location while the tax return is prepared. So, you don't get that great interpersonal communication like you get in most years, but it's safe and it's I think it's a good workaround for this year with, all the chaos of the pandemic.
For sure, for sure. And at this point, I'd love for the libraries as well to share. Can you share just some of the safety protocols that you all have been putting in place and doing a great job of, so folks can still get to the library and use all of your great services?
In general, we've been requiring the masks. Things like computer use are limited to 30 minutes. We've been doing a lot of cleaning, obviously. Everything's been going very smoothly with that, but we're being very safe and careful.
Great, and I'm sure that's, you guys are working on that as well at the Elyria Public Library.
Pretty much the same. We have social distancing signs all over the place. In our high traffic areas or our high traffic desks, we have clear barriers up and things like that. We still offer curbside for people who don't want to come in the building or won't wear a mask. But we really don't get much use with that anymore. Everybody wants to come in and pick their stuff up and pick it out. So yeah.
It's interesting. I remember early on in the pandemic, I think this might be something that the Lorraine Public Library or Susan, you posted about how you all have a very unique business model in that people take stuff and return it, which is maybe a little different than stores and the protocols that they have to put in place.
I do want to mention we have holds lockers outside of a lot of our branches, and soon it will be all of them too. If you want to pick them up, pick up items 24/7 too. I forgot to mention that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
very helpful.
We have hold lockers as well at all of our locations. So yeah, pretty much the same.
Very, very cool, very unique. Have you found that any of the things like hold lockers or any other things that you've put in place, you might continue even after we're able to, interact more easily?
We actually had the holds lockers at our West River location prior to COVID. So we ended up adding those to all of our locations. We don't have them at our South branch yet, but we probably will. They're at our Keystone branch, and they'll also be at the new Central Library. The curbside after the fact, I think that might be something that we could continue to offer to people who don't want to get out of their car. So we'll see how it goes. But like I said, it's not getting much use anymore. People want to come in and pick out their own stuff. Let's
And
see what
same
else.
for us. Yeah. Same for us too. I wish curbside existed when all of my children were toddlers. That's a nice
Right.
service for people with young families as well as others. But yeah, we've discovered a lot of things. The virtual programming, I'm sure, is the same for both of us too. We hope to get back to in-person programming at some point, but it's been a nice opportunity for some people to join virtually for things like this. We had someone from Iowa show up to one of our programs, so that was a little fun.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I think we found that too. So I always love hearing those stories of kind of things we've figured out how to do during these times that, we'll just keep doing because they work. So we do have a couple of questions that have come in from the live chat. The first one is about the stimulus checks, speaking of the pandemic. So if someone didn't get a stimulus check last year or this year, can that be fixed on the tax return?
The short answer to that is yes. So when clients come to their tax appointment, we'll need to know what they did get, and we'll plug that into the software, and the software will reconcile that with what they should have gotten. So for example, if you didn't get this most recent round of checks, but you should have, you'll get a $600 credit on your tax return. So it'll come back to you that way.
Great. Similar kind of tax related question. If someone didn't file last year, can we still do their taxes from last year?
We can. It'll kind of depend on the day and the site. That'll be a question for when they schedule their appointment, but we will be able to do last year's and this year's. They just have to make sure to mention it when they're making their appointment. Okay,
good to know. And ooh, the questions are coming in now. So these two I'm going to kind of bundle together. So what would you say to someone who's interested in volunteering, yay, but is intimidated by taxes? I feel you. And also, what do you have to do to become a VITA volunteer?
I guess I'll take this question too. Don't be intimidated by taxes. I know that sounds like what I would say to anyone because I'm trying to get them to volunteer, but I'll say that when I was first doing taxes myself, I was in an AmeriCorps program doing community outreach, and I was voluntold to go volunteer with the tax program. And I had no experience other than doing my own. My undergrad was political science, and that's nothing to do with taxes. So I had no experience, but once you get into it, it's like putting a puzzle together, and there's nothing that's too difficult that you'll be asked to do, especially in your first year volunteering. It's really, this almost sounds bad to say, but it's glorified data entry. I mean, you're putting things from box 1 on this form to box 1 in the computer, and that's about it.
I'll also have Emily jump in here too, because I imagine you were managing the program when Matt started taxes. So
yeah, I was the reason Matt got voluntold. Oh, look at you now! You run the program. I feel like Matt's probably had the same conversation with a lot of people. Like, what do you say to somebody who's intimidated, sort of interested, on the fence? It's the most accessible form of tax training that I've ever experienced. And I've taken like tax law and I've taken tax accounting and all of that, right? So like they break it down. And I think couple important things to remember. Most of the volunteers aren't accountants. There's like probably less than 5 out of all of them. And you can always ask for help. So if you don't know the answer, if you're not comfortable preparing a return, if you only want to do people who have uncomplicated, like one tax form tax returns, the site coordinator or Matt or whoever's there is going to set you up for success. Nobody's going to be like, oh, it's your first day. Here's the hardest tax return that we've ever seen. Please figure this out. Like, that's not going to happen. And by the nature of the VITA program, they're not complicated taxes to begin with. There might be some like piecing through information to figure out what the best circumstance is for that person. But we're not doing, like Fortune 500 companies tax returns. So if you want to like learn more about taxes, if you're at all interested, there's so many different ways that you can be involved, even if you're just a greeter, that I would just go for it. Like the worst thing that could happen is you say like after 1 or 2 times, this isn't for me. And everybody's gonna be like, cool, that's fine.
Do you have any, so there's a couple more questions. I'm going to stay unmuted, Emily. Is there any advice that you have for a first-year volunteer? And then what is your favorite memory from volunteering?
Advice for a first-year volunteer is just go in with an open mind, because people like, I voluntold my husband like the season before we got married, and like he thought it was this big scary thing to do, and he like, he still says it wasn't as bad as I thought that it was going to be, or it wasn't as intimidating, or it was a lot easier to do, so go in with an open mind. Like, people get intimidated by taxes. Know that like pretty much everybody involved with the VITA program was intimidated at some point in time or another. And just like, if you're at all interested in learning something, if you're interested in like getting an additional certification, trying out a different, like, if you're doing drop off and you want to do like virtual, or if you want to do like, this like modified in person that Matt's been talking about, like, just give it a whirl. Like, if it interests you, try it out. And if you don't like it, there's always ways to change how you're volunteering.
I would also just say, I mean, it makes you sound really impressive when you say I volunteer to do taxes, because people just look at you like, what? You must be brilliant.
And it looks great on a resume.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And do you have any favorite memories, Emily?
Favorite memories? I think my favorite memories are like getting to go back and like volunteer with my former coworkers and volunteer with the volunteers that like I trained. And that's kind of funny how like, some of them kind of make fun of me now, not make fun, but like they get a kick out of the fact that like now I'm a volunteer and that I'm still around, and just kind of getting to see the program grow and change and adapt. Holy cow, have you had to adapt in the last 12 months? Like that's like my favorite thing.
And actually, what a great segue. We have a question similar to what we were talking about earlier. Are there any changes that you've implemented this year that might carry over to the next year, like remote tax training, drop-off tax volunteering, et cetera?
Yeah, so training volunteers this year. Side note, we're not done with trainings yet. So if anyone still is interested in volunteering, we still have trainings coming up. But the ones we've done online have been through Zoom, through, something like this, but just with me sharing a PowerPoint on my screen. And the feedback's been phenomenal. People love being able to, train from home, because, they can just sit there in their pajamas and take notes and watch a presentation. So it's something that we'll definitely continue going forward. We'll still go with, the in-person trainings, but we'll go with more of a hybrid model, because I think just like in almost every avenue of everything everyone's doing, people are finding that virtual things are working out really well. Mm-hmm. And then for preparation, we'll see how things go this year, but I definitely see remote preparation as being an option going forward if people really take to it. So looking forward to that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it has been really cool how we just kind of test things out. That's kind of the way, and see what works. Just to know, if you are interested in volunteering, you can go to our website. I think they're putting it in the chat, but uwloraincounty.org/volunteer, and it'll lead you to the free text volunteer sign up page, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. So I have another question here about the library, the sites. So this person was told yesterday that the Lorain Public Library was the only site doing taxes right now. When will the Elyria Library be taking appointments?
We are aiming for this week. So this week for both Ohio Means Jobs and Elyria Public Library. We do also, I should mention, have our site Salvation Army in Sandusky. So if anyone's watching this from closer to the Sandusky area, you can call them directly to schedule an appointment with them. And yeah, the other appointments will be live this week.
All right. And can you talk a little bit about how the free tax program sponsored by AARP works with our program?
So AARP does also have a tax program. They use the same software as us. They go through the same training. Theirs is a little different in that they, well, obviously being AARP, they target retirees mostly. So where our target demographic are working families in poverty, low to moderate income clients, theirs are retirees who, maybe they used to do their taxes themselves, or maybe they just need someone to do their taxes. We see it sometimes with our own program where, a spouse used to do it and the spouse has passed away. So whatever the situation is, they go for more of the retiree audience, and they operate in Lorain County, throughout the county as well. They're on, to my knowledge, they're on a little bit of a limited capacity this year, but they are still operating. So you can get more information on that if anyone is interested in the AARP program by calling 211, and they have information about those tax sites as well.
Yes, we can't say it enough. 211 is the kind of the resource to kind of go to, 211lorain.org, or just calling 211 and you can get some more information and schedule appointments. For our partners at the libraries, imagine, because folks know that they go to year after year for taxes, they ask you questions about taxes. Are there kind of questions that keep coming up or concerns that keep coming up?
Well, Jen and I aren't on the desk to hear the questions time after time, but I do know we do get a lot of tax questions, and we just train new staff to come in that we are not tax preparers. We pass them on to the VITA volunteers. So that's our go-to, our go-to response.
Yeah.
And the same for us. The last week or so, the phone's been ringing off the hook, though, asking when this program will be back. So that's a question we're getting now, mostly.
We're coming back. Actually, so related to that, someone just asked, can we talk about the tax season starting late again this year? Any thoughts on that, Matt or Emily?
So that is a complicated question. So the tax season, it depends on when you are preparing the returns. So what they delayed was the tax filing deadline. So we will still be preparing some returns prior to that the tax filing opening on the 12th. And that would just mean that we would send them through, and then TaxSlayer, which is the software we use, keeps it in the queue until that day, and then they forward them on to be submitted. So it'll probably cause a little bit of a delay from those people in getting their tax refund, but I would say no more than usual. And usually people who are getting the child tax credit and the earned income tax credit, they don't get their refunds until midway through March anyway, because the IRS keeps those until a certain date. So filing may be opening later, but refunds should still be coming in about the same time.
Okay, that's good information to know. And if we know someone who might be able to utilize this service, but who has never used it before, what should their next step be? And could you talk a little bit on top of that about what are the eligibility requirements as well?
So with that, call 211. 211 will be able to schedule an appointment for you, and they will send you a confirmation email. They'll go through with the time and date and the instructions for everything. And then the actual eligibility for making an appointment. So like I said before, we go for low to moderate income clients, which means $60,000 AGI, adjusted gross income, for a household. So that's not just for an individual person, but for a household. And then there are some complexity requirements that we, I guess more restrictions that we go by. We can't do anything with like rental income. There's some complicated investment income that we're not allowed to do. But for the most part, if you have anything like that, you can ask about it when you're making your appointment and know if you'll be in scope for us or not. But really, 99% of the returns we see that are under $60,000 are in scope, because there's not too much that's out of scope for us that we see with the demographic we serve.
Thanks. And if you have any questions, call us, 440-277-6530. Again, 211 to make an appointment, and reach out to volunteer@uwlorainecounty.org. If you have any questions about volunteering, it'll get to us. We're always happy to answer questions. So we're just about at the end of our time here. So I just want to open it up and see if anyone has any final comments that they want to share with everyone.
I do just want to give a shout out to all of our partners, Elyria Public Library, Lorain Public Library, Ohio Means Jobs, Salvation Army Sandusky, and then the rest of the staff at United Way who help us. I mean, everyone has been working with us so much to make this happen this year, and we couldn't do it without all of our partners in the community. So thank you. That's what I want to say, is thank you.
Yeah, I want to echo that too. It's just always really enjoyable working with all of you, and you guys opening your doors to us and the tax clients. And it's really cool how we can all kind of work together and share our resources to help people in different ways.
We love partnering with you too, and you can hang out in our parking lot whenever you want.
I'm just going to come, hang out in the parking lot, maybe a dance party.
It was fun.
All right. Thank you all so much. Once again, if anyone has any questions, reach out to us, and we hope that you can get involved in our free tax prep impact initiative. Have a good day, everyone.